All right, so we're talking a little bit about ACLs, and let's start with the simplest question of all. How does an ACL tear happen in the first place?
Yeah, the most common way an ACL tear happens is usually a non-contact. Actually, 70% of them are non-contact. And the theory behind it is it's believed that when an athlete steps down with a flat foot, it puts them in a vulnerable position where the rest of the muscles aren't absorbing the shock, and then you get twisting, shifting through of the tibia bone on the femur, and it creates the ACL tear. Typically they hear the notorious pop, and then all of a sudden pain, unable to bear weight or ambulate after that, and the rest becomes history, I guess.
Okay. So now we have a good idea of how or why they happen. So what's actually happening on the inside when that pop happens?
Okay, the ACL standing for anterior cruciate ligament, cruciate meaning they cross. So you have a ligament running from front to back on one bone, and then vice versa with the other ligament being the posterior cruciate ligament. What happens is the tibia will slide forward in reference to the femur bone, and it puts tension across this ligament. When it gets a maximal load, then that's when it tears. It could tear partially, it could fully tear. It could tear in the mid portion of it, or it could tear it in the upper end of it. And there's even been some shown that tore at the base of it where the tibia is.
Now, we've seen some absolutely gruesome ACL injuries
Yes.
in the past. Marcus Lattimore, Willis McGahee.
Yeah.
There's a long list of them. They're very common in sports now, particularly I think football and basketball seem to have a lot of them. Maybe Evgeny Malkin a couple years ago, but that was kind of rare for hockey. Let's go with a younger athlete. When they do this, is there any type of potential long-term implication that can come out of this type of injury?
Yes, yeah. I mean, typically there's a unhappy triad that occurs with an ACL injury, and those are not only the ACL is tore, medial meniscus is tore, possible medial collateral ligament is tore. So now you have multi-ligamentous injury and a meniscus. Those require surgery. Those require longer rehab. Those set you up for arthritic changes in the future to the knees. Yeah.
What about, and obviously, so there's like the MCL and the PCL you mentioned. All
Right.
of those. So I think it was Adrian Peterson a couple years ago tore all three of them. Is that
Yes.
a normal thing? Is that common?
No. Again, a lot of it's based on the position of the leg and then the contact made at the time of the injury. So again, 70% being non-contact, you add contact to it, it becomes a higher energy. More energy, more tissue damage.
Now, would you say is football the most dangerous for ACLs, or the most likely where it'll happen, or can it happen honestly in any sport?
It does. It happens in any sport, and we see it in any sport. Actually, interesting statistic is there's about 100,000 ACL reconstructions every year in the U.S. So they're happening in a lot of sports. More prone to females, actually. Actually, the ratio is 8-to-1, I believe, to females. So if you had to pick a sport, you're looking at things like acrobatics and tumbling, and you're looking at girls basketball. Those are the ones that will acquire the most. But by all means, any sport, cutting, pivoting, reversing, you're set up for an ACL tear.
When an athlete goes back after the reconstruction, after the rehab, and they're ready to roll,
Yeah.
Is it more like the odds of re-tearing it or re-injuring it, or even injuring the other one, they become higher? And is it, when those athletes are performing, is it about their level of confidence on that knee, or is it simply?
Yeah. The statistics will show 50% chance of a re-rupture if you had an ACL reconstruction. 50% chance that you could get one on the contralateral extremity, and actually 50% chance that if you have a sibling, they'll get one. Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, it's based off of anatomy. Typically, it has to do with the notch of the femur, and sometimes a narrower notch will set you up for a tear, and it's because the ACL has a bending moment around the femur.
Okay. Take me through the reconstruction process then. What does that? I mean, the surgery happens. Is it true that the surgery you have to wait a couple weeks? If, like, let's say you tear the MCL, you have to wait for that to heal and then go in and do the ACL?
Yeah, typically the goal before you go to surgery is, can we get motion back in the athlete? If you can, then that's you're one leg up literally in the rehab process. And so the I forgot the question.
So, we're talking about like the process of going
Okay.
into surgery.
Oh,
like,
going into surgery, yeah. So after you get them back into a prehab period where they're preparing for surgery, and you get them into the OR, there's been a ton of advances with ACLs, reconstructions. My partner, Joe Fazzolari, he's done a lot of these. He's, I think, over 75 just last year during the season, and there's various ways to treat those once you're in there. You could take grafts from the patella tendon on the athlete. You could take it from their hamstrings. You could also use allografts, cadaveric tendons used to repair and reconstruct the ACL.
Okay. What about now the actual rehab process? That takes a pretty long time to go through. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what's the actual process like? And what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get strength back in or movement back in? What's the process and the point of the rehab?
Okay. When an ACL reconstruction is done, you create tunnels within the femur bone and the tibia bone. These are bone tunnels that will bleeding will flow into those. It will try to incorporate the new graft. So you're looking at a time period just for healing or getting incorporation of that graft up to 2 to 3 months. Now that you got incorporation in the graft, now it's time to start getting the athlete back into sport-specific training. So you're looking at a total time frame of about 6 months to a year. And again, I think where that varies is, was there other ligaments involved? Did you have to delay the surgery for an MCL to heal or a PCL to heal? Or did you have to change the rehab process because you fixed a meniscus? And I think each surgeon will take each account differently, and I think that's what changes the duration of how long it takes to get a player back on the field.
Okay, awesome. I got one last question for you. Is Dr. James Andrews like the Michael Jordan of reconstruction?
Yeah. By all means, he's definitely set the bar pretty high in regards to his standards. His standards are being practiced everywhere. There's fellows from his training that are out there performing surgeries throughout the country, and I think he's, for his popularity, popular with ACLs. I think his criteria has been what has been set for getting an athlete back to appropriate form.
One follow-up question. Would you say, because ACL like surgery and the idea behind it back in like the 60s, let's say, this would have been considered career threatening, right?
Yes, yeah, it was. I even if you go back to the 90s, I had my ACL done, and the rehab in the early 90s totally different than what we're looking at now, and I was immobilized for up to 6 weeks. Now we're not even bracing them that long. We're getting them back, moving the knee faster, which allows them to get back on the field. That's why we lost a lot of athletes. They didn't get back to the same level of competition they were prior to the injury.
All right, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, is there any prevention that you can do? I mean, like exercise before you?
No, a lot of people do ask those type of questions, and I really think the mainstay of where that's at is appropriate strengthening and conditioning, utilizing dynamic types exercises for stretching and pre-game warm-ups, and mechanics. Good mechanics, of course, is going to prevent most injuries.
Okay, you know what? That just made me think of another question, actually. You remember when Phillip Rivers tried to play on a torn ACL, a playoff game?
You know what?
A couple years ago?
I do. Yeah.
Could you, I mean, you told me you tore your ACL. What would that have been like, attempting
Yeah.
to try and play football?
It did. I can't really recall Phillip Rivers, but I did try wrestling. I tore mine wrestling, and when I was out on the mat after the tear, I tried to continue that match, and it was very awkward how you could feel the bones sliding underneath of your other bone, and you had no control of it, and it's that moment when you know that I can't perform. I can't do what I need to do, and or else you're just set up to make it worse.
Okay, wow, I had no idea that's like the most, gotta be the weirdest sensation.
It was a very weird sensation.
That just got to me too.
We almost had it. It's like.
Yeah.
Hold him all like.
He's